Speaking of a possibly poisoned well that could be drinkable again, let's talk
Oh, here we go.
Thunderbolts, right? Because the buzz and listen, I was texting with some people who are hearing great buzz about this Thunderbolts asterisk. And my fear here, and you are the expert when it comes to superheroes, you're a superhero correspondent. I want the straight dope from your mouth to my ears and our listeners' ears. Is this a Flash situation? Is this hype that is unfounded?
That is an excellent question. The way you frame
Thank
that
you. I'm an
compared,
excellent host.
yeah, to comparing it to the Flash is fascinating because I think from where the positive reactions are coming is a bit more organic for Thunderbolts.
Okay.
However, the big difference in general, it's called Thunderbolts Asterix, and that was The Flash. That was The Flash's only movie, and that was a long-awaited, one of the most iconic comic book characters of all time, one of DC's biggest names. And these are the ragtag. You thought the Guardians of the Galaxy were an odd bunch in 2014. This is the oddest, wildest group of, quite frankly, beyond Bucky and Yelena, Sebastian Stan, and Florence Pugh. Throwaway MCU characters. Just MCU characters that are just like ancillary. They're there. Like people, not beloved characters by any means. So when comparing them, I think that there was no real pressure for this to do great business or do great, not business. Excuse me. I recant that. To do great critically because it's the Thunderbolts,
Yes.
like there's something to it where it's like you're not expecting that much from it, which I think will work heavily in its favor. I think with Captain America 4, there was a big pressure behind it. The buzz was all mediocre to negative. It wasn't great. I liked it okay. It was one of those like kind of down the middle, but also not awesome and not really as good as the first 3 with Chris Evans. So with this one, it's brand new. It's random IP. And by the way, a big talking point that not a lot of people keep mentioning, this is the marquee MCU release date. They lost it last year. They didn't have a movie to release here. This is the one. They poured a lot of money into this. Do I think it's going to be the biggest movie of this summer? No. Do I think it'll be as big as the July slate? No. But yes, I do believe it's going to make money, make more than Captain America Brave New World, and that the positive buzz, and especially come Thursday, Friday, when it's actual fan reactions and there's maybe a virality to the post-credit scene or different elements to it, it could be a really big movie to open number 1 this upcoming weekend and add, well, it won't be anything, it's not going to set the world on fire like a Minecraft movie. Add a little positive momentum heading into Fantastic Four, which is the linchpin critical point in the MCU. Thunderbolts is going to be awesome. It's in the marquee spot. I'm excited to see it, as well as a lot of MCU fans. The pressure's not that big on that one, though, right? That is the Thunderbolts. They're kind of not throwaway, but they're kind of, they could perish and it might be all right. But like I said, besides Sebastian Stan and besides Florence Pugh, the other ones are a bit expendable. And beyond that, we'll see. Like I feel like we're recording this, obviously, this is a preview a week ahead. It feels like word of mouth is going to be very important. The opening's probably not going to set the world on fire either because it is kind of a ragtag team. But this has the potential to hold through May to Memorial Day weekend, and I think a major way.
So could this possibly be, and I know it's not going to open as low, as something like when the Pixar movie opened. What was
Lightyear?
that? What was it? What did you say?
Lightyear? Elemental?
No, Elemental.
Yeah.
When Elemental opened, and it opened so low.
Yeah.
And that was when Pixar was at its lowest. It seemed commercially or artistically bankrupt. Something that I floated across our once and never again guest, Matt Baloney, who yelled at me on my own show about me saying that maybe their best days were over. But that was a movie that I will admit had legs and people found it and
Oh yeah.
it didn't reach the heights of some of the other originals, but it definitely did enough to make you be like, huh, does Pixar have a stronger heartbeat than I expected? Thunderbolts could be the same thing. Now, obviously at a higher level, because this looks like it's going to open to 67 or 70. But I mean, we're talking about a world where Ant-Man Quantumania opened over 100. And that was, you know what I mean? Like, that's one of those things. Now, that was sort of the death knell of that phase of the MCU. So I'm looking at these opening weekends and where this would place if it opens at that number, which you think it's going to be higher, and we'll talk about it. If this opens 65 to 70, it puts it under Eternals, and Shang-Chi, but over the original Thor, the original Captain America, the original Ant-Man, the Incredible Hulk movie, and the Marvels, which is the
Marvels,
lowest.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Which obviously we've said a million times, Quantumania is the reason why people didn't like the Marvels, because they were just so, and Black Adam, it was just the worst time to put out superhero movies that weren't spectacular, right?
And Secret Invasion, by the way, throw that out there. Not a
Yeah.
movie, but really had a huge impact on that.
Honestly, it really, really did. So I do think that the creatives behind the Marvels really got really effed with that. It is not on them, and I will go to my grave saying that. I'll say that on my death. I mean, I'm gonna say so much on my deathbed. It's gonna take a lot. You know, I'm gonna have to have a court stenographer sort of shorthand it so that people can send it to all my loved ones. But yeah, so what is your take on Thunderbolts? Where do you think it will open? You're saying higher.
So here's one thing that everyone's forgetting too.
Okay.
About a month ago, 3 weeks ago, all of a sudden, I'm at work. I work, I'm on work. I'm online. And hey, we're hearing tomorrow there's going to be some huge MCU announcement. What? What are you guys talking about? We just recorded a podcast. Okay, like we'll see. 9 a.m., 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. We'll see. Why would they do? What could this possibly be? Here comes Chris Evans' chair. We're sitting there,
famous,
and we're like, okay, Chris Evans, Thor 5. No, there's Vanessa Kirby. What? And there goes 5.5 hours of my life and watching the chairs assemble, as some may say. Robert Downey Jr. shows up, which we all know. I was there in the building. Comic-Con. It was a good time.
Yep.
And everyone says, hey, that spoiled the Thunderbolts. But what you're also forgetting is that made people understand and even notice the Thunderbolts exist and the Thunderbolts are coming and the Thunderbolts matter to the future of the MCU. And they are coming back. And Sebastian Stan's coming back. And Florence Pugh is coming back. And you can get real excited to go see the Thunderbolts this summer because they'll be back with Downey, with Hemsworth, with Ian McKellen and James Marsden and Sonic next summer for Avengers Doomsday. And so I think in terms of fans, it was a turnoff because, like I said, kind of spoiled Thunderbolts maybe a tad. I don't give a shit about that, honestly, because we all kind of know how that movie was going to go. It is going to make this movie money. I think it was genius for not only Doomsday, but also for Thunderbolts, because all of a sudden, I think since then, and they've picked up the marketing a lot as well, there's been a whole different idea of what this movie is going to mean. There's been the whole narrative around the MCU has been the connectivity has been all off. And how are we going to have an Avengers 5 next May, right? How are we going to get there? You can't watching Daredevil and, we're just seeing this and then Captain America even, it doesn't really set anything up. Now Thunderbolts can be that for people. And I think if more so than, it's a good movie, it is, this is required reading for Avengers Doomsday. That I think is gonna be what gets people out to the theaters more so than even Florence Pugh and Sebastian Stan. So overall, I think over 70, I'd say over 80. 88 million was the Captain America 4 number. I know Disney wants to go obviously over 88 million. I don't think that happens because of just the name recognition. But I do think around, I would say as high as 85 million is possible for Thunderbolts. I think people are underestimating it, quite frankly.
Great. Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things where I think if you are a fan of superheroes or comic books in general, Thunderbolts, they canonically are not what they seem.
No.
You know what I mean? Like that was the origin of them, is that they're not what they seem. It's not going to be the same thing as it was in the comic books, but it's going to be something, especially with the asterisk. So the people who know, they're going to know something was up and something was going to happen anyway. And the people that aren't in the know aren't going to care, other than, like you said, oh, okay, so I'm going to see these characters again at some point if I want to see Avengers, which is the tentpole of the Marvel universe. So they are going to see, if they're going to see any Marvel movie, they're probably going to see the Avengers, right? So I do think it doesn't matter if it spoiled anything, because the people who know anything about comic books were already spoiled, at least a little bit, right?
Yeah, and like the recent trailers, they did the classic MCU move of like showing old footage. They showed Scarlett Johansson, they showed Chris Evans. They made those connections to people to, once again, the play on nostalgia, the play on, hey, this matters. You know these characters, like especially Sebastian Stan, an MCU OG, like OG of OGs, is still kicking in the MCU and kicking ass. Like that, I think, is enough, especially where Sebastian Stan is in his career, where he has such a wide fan base, not only as Bucky, but just as an actor. He helps a lot too.
Yeah. If this opens to 85, it'll be somewhere in the market of over Black Widow and Doctor Strange 1 and Thor Dark World. So 85 would be cousins to that. And listen, if this opens as big as the first Doctor Strange, I mean, these characters are at the level of, that sort of character, like the Ant-Man level characters that aren't in a bigger movie. Like Quantumania was a larger movie than it just itself. And
Definitely.
so I think this wouldn't be a bad opening for this movie if it gets to 85.
And even Ant-Man Quantumania was playing on our emotions of, this is Kang the Conqueror. He's going to be the Avengers 5 at that time, main villain. This matters. This, once again, there is such an element of, oh, this actually matters.
Yeah.
There really wasn't that with Captain America 4. It didn't matter, like it was, and I hate to say that because, like, sure, it mattered, quote unquote, but in terms of the narrative to the setup of the next Avengers movie, the next event crossover, it really didn't. And they have, since Captain America 4, I think very wisely, made it abundantly clear that Thunderbolts is that. It's not just Fantastic Four, because that was kind of the assumption we were all under, that Fantastic Four in many ways will somehow set up Avengers 5. And now it seems to be a two-parter where maybe it's more so Fantastic Four, but still, Thunderbolts is going to be a big chapter in this. The cast is back in Avengers. They're going to be key players. Go check it out if you want to know what's really happening next summer.
Yeah. Whatever happened to that Kang guy?